Join us as we dive deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today, interviewing top leaders from around the world and sharing true cybercrime stories to raise awareness. But first, a huge thank you to all of our executive co-producers who subscribed to our Prime membership and fueled our growth. So please help us keep this going by subscribing for free to our YouTube channel and downloading our episodes on Apple or Spotify podcasts so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show. Well, all right. Welcome, everybody, to Cybercrime Junkies. I am your host, David Morrow. In the studio today is my illustrious, always positive, and fantabulous co-host, according to my insincere things to say to coworkers app, Mark Mosher. How are you, Mark?
Oh, but doing wonderful, David. I'm so excited about this episode.
This is our guy. Like, this is the
it.
most
Repeat guest,
interesting
good
thing
friend,
ever.
number 17 on the field, number 1 in your heart. Who do we got today, David?
We have the Jon DiMaggio, security researcher, leadership over at Analyst One, and undercover boss. So, Jon, welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining. Always great to see you. You just released Diaries Vol3 in your series. Be something bigger than like the Twilight series eventually.
I have read all of that series.
Well, yeah, I'm part of the fan club. So, things, you have a warning right in the beginning of your Ransomware Diaries, and we talk about this every now and then, but we don't do it enough. And that is, please don't try this stuff at home, right? Like, engaging with ransomware criminals and cybercrime gangs is not a friggin' joke. Like, it's not something to be taken lightly. There's specific training and expertise that the people that undergo those processes do. And Jon, walk us through kind of what reason, because I read the whole thing, and some of this just happened this month, just like a couple weeks ago.
Right.
So
yeah, we were down to the wire on this one. I was rewriting parts of this days before it came out because
unbelievable. Tell us, hang on, let me switch the video here real quick. Not what I wanted. There we go. Let me get rid of that. All right. So from a high level, for those that might not be aware or have heard or seen any of our prior episodes, one of the leading notorious cybercrime gangs on the planet.
Yeah, I would say the leading, based on volume numbers and I don't know the way to say it, popularity in the criminal world. Definitely, out of my research of all the years, they're definitely the most notorious. I mean, at this point, they've even beat Regal for being.
Subscribe to several things that pull things from the dark web, right? And we just see the breaches as they happen, like during the day, and it's like LOCKBIT, clop with move it, and it's like LOCKBIT, and then a couple like new kids on the block. I'm like, who are you guys? And then we're just like, it goes LOCKBIT, and like, so you uncovered some really shocking things, and mainstream media is starting to pick up some of this. Like, is LOCKBIT, folding? Are they imploding? Are they having issues? There were several things that you kind of uncovered. So you want to walk us through it from a high level, and then we can get into some specifics. Yeah,
Sure. So there's a lot to this story, obviously. 70 pages of research, but the short, I guess, Cliff Notes to the point version of this, really, there's been a number of problems that LOCKBIT's had with its operation, and that is a problem that it was lying to not just the general public to protect its reputation, but to its direct partners. And I'll talk about that here in a second. But as I worked through this and I began to realize these things, Reached out to some of their top affiliates and partners and getting the confirmation of this and having them tell me, hey, we're leaving the operation or we've left their operation because of it. I was like, how does the
Right.
rest of the world not know this? And I'm sure I'm not the only researcher that found it. There's got to be other people that saw it if I did, but as far as I know, I'm the only one that's talked about it or brought it to the public. In essence, they've been extorting people for money, and they've been struggling to actually follow through with their threats of posting data. That's
Right.
the most significant finding about it. They're hosting massive infrastructure on the dark web. In June of 2022, they switched up to a new ransomware called LOCKBIT 3.0, and they more than doubled in their number of affiliates, and their attacks just blew up. I don't have the specific metrics on it, but they've more than
And
doubled what they did the year before.
let
And
me
they
interject
don't have the
one thing, just by way of background for those that might not be aware. So Lockbit is like the core group, right? The name of the cybercrime gang is basically named after the code that they originally developed, right? It's the brand name of it. And then they
Yeah.
themselves don't go and hack into the victims' networks. They engage these affiliates and they pay them. You know, we've talked about it in other episodes. Lockbit is really a unique model because they let the affiliates, these digital mercenaries, essentially go and
Yes.
collect the money and then cut Lockbit their share. And the
Yes.
are extremely generous. As you've pointed out, it's not like buy a new car or even a new house type money. This is like buy an island type money.
Right. Yeah. Correct. It's like buy an island
Wow.
type of money. You're 100% correct. And yeah, so Lockbit's core gang, yeah, it's like a business operation that they run. Last time I asked, they had around 100 employees. That does not count what they call their partners, what we'll call their mercenary hackers or affiliates. And you know, they pay them literally to go out and to compromise and hack organizations, steal their data, expose, you know, their sensitive information. And if they don't pay them, they claim that they're going to post their data. And historically, they've always done that. But that's kind of what I was leading to earlier. Is with such a large volume, it's exploded with the amount of attacks and how much data they're stealing. And they've made such an easy to use interface where it's literally point and click. Okay, I have the data. All right, now I'm going to load it up onto the website, and it's going to create a victim entry. And now a timer starts. You're the victim. When this timer hits 0,
Man.
I'm going to put your data out there. And it's that simple. The thing is, they've made such a strong reputation for themselves over the years now. September will be 4 years for them. They've made such a strong reputation that I think people just stopped actually looking to see if they could download the data, or when they did, they just assumed, oh, maybe it's like I'm not used to using the dark web. I don't know, maybe it's not working. But nobody realized that it's more than that it's more of a problem. I started to pick up on it when I stalked their site. So I mean, I started to
And
figure
by
something
way
was
of
wrong.
background,
But when
everybody, let's remember that after John released his last kind of expose on Lockbit's dark web site, their profile had John's picture there.
Oh my
So
God.
there's nothing that lets you sleep well at night.
Boy, that
to
makes
know
you
that the
feel-
most notorious crime gang out there has your picture as their avatar. So
They do. They do. Anyway, what I realized though is that they're not actually
right.
posting that data. And a couple months ago, in the back end, so the public doesn't ever see this. Their leak site, nobody sees this. But if you're in with them, the way they communicate on the back end, they use specific protocols and fairly uncommon, we'll call them apps, that they
Is
use to
that the
communicate.
Tox?
On that
Is that the
app, it's
Tox
almost
app?
like that.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. It's almost like their customer service method.
It's like
where if I'm an
Slack for
affiliate and
criminals.
I'm
Right.
yeah, but with a
Exactly.
lot less features. But it's the way that I come to you and I say, hey, my decryption key's not working. I got this victim ready to pay. I'm gonna make 10 mil. I need you to help me with this, and Lockbit will help them out and get it going. Well, Lockbit down for just like a day or two, and he did that because they were doing up their infrastructure. So after that update, I thought, oh man, as I was in the middle of writing my report, I'm like, oh man, this sucks. They fixed it. More victim data is going to get out there. Actually did was that it was almost like a facade. He made the website now look like, so instead of posting the data, it would be like, let's say the ransom was 100 million. After it expires, now a criminal could buy it for 60,000,
Oh.
or the victim. But so that's like giving him an excuse to not post it. But he still said, it still says
Right.
all of your data is exposed, but you can't get it. You can't get it. And then in other instances, it would just say it's exposed, but the data just wasn't there still. And then there's a third scenario where they could be exposed, and then there'd be like a link to some public file sharing service. Well, here's the thing: those public file sharing
Yeah.
services can be taken down, and that's one of the things that these affiliates pay for,
Right.
is to have LOCKBIT
So that
post
they
their
can't get
infrastructure.
caught, and
so
so that it can't get taken down, right?
Yeah.
And this gets to the very
Correct.
heart of it, doesn't
Yes.
it? If you can't actually deliver on the thing you're threatening people on, right? Your whole business model kind of goes up in
It's
smoke.
gone.
It does. And not all affiliate hackers are equal. So these guys are hiring, they
And they
usually
work for a
in
couple
teams,
different
and
gangs,
some
right? Some might work for Clop, for
yes,
Clop,
good
and
ones.
some might
Yeah,
work for
exactly.
it all. It's project based, basically,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
mostly they're hired guns, exactly. They wanna get paid, they'll work for multiple gangs, but many of the top gangs, at least the ones that I communicate with them often at this point in my career, from all the research that I've been doing, and feel like I know them as well as somebody could know them, that's outside. And, these guys were leaving. They're like, this is ridiculous. Like, I mean, it was literally like they were upset with the customer service. They upset they weren't getting what they were paid for. They don't treat it like, like they're criminals. They treat it literally like this is
It's almost like
a
a
business. They're
startup
not
that
getting what
hit
they
it
want.
big, and then it just grew so fast that the customer service
Yes.
couldn't keep up with the demand.
And to make it worse, this tox communication method, because it is so limited, and they now have so much business, that it sometimes takes over a
Wow.
week to get a response. So now, so I mentioned they were gone for 2 days. Well, that was nothing. They came back, and but you were still waiting for like a week to come back. So it's been a big problem. I used the analogy in my report because it just happened to me. If you've been on the phone trying to get something fixed with an airline, and you're sitting there for hours, you are so frustrated. Now imagine that you're paying them millions of dollars.
Think
and
about
you're
that.
sitting there on the phone.
There's $10 million or $100 million that you're negotiating or ransoming, and you need answers, and they take a week to even get back to you. Wow.
Wow.
Yes, it's crazy. And then the other, I guess, big thing that happened was, again, you have to really stalk them to know when they're going to have dates and new updates and things
Yeah,
like that. But
each
over the
year
past 2
around
years,
June,
in
they
June,
come out with their
Yeah.
new and improved version of their product, right? Their platform, right?
yes,
And they didn't
but
this
they did
year.
not this year. They missed that. Instead, a few months earlier in January, so like 6 months earlier in January, it was January, yeah, they essentially, what they did is they took a leaked version of one of their competitors, the Conti ransomware gang. They took their leaked version and they just altered it to have their note, the LOCKBIT ransomware note, in it instead, and offered that up, calling it LOCKBIT Green. Here's the problem: I've had that on a VM of mine since February of 2022.
Right.
It's not new. There's some signatures out there to identify it. There's lots of things. So that's fine for us as defenders. But but it's trouble for LOCKBIT when bad guys are expecting to use that. The way they did have going for them is the affiliates who liked working for Conti are like, okay, well, I like this malware, I can continue to use it. But again, we've got signatures. It's not new. It can be defeated. It's bad for them. But these things that just weren't really getting put out there. And LOCKBIT has this strong narrative on these forums, and it's that everything's great, business as usual, on the top villain of the underworld, and everybody buys it. So I just wanted to shine some light where there hadn't been light in a long time, and sort of challenge them, that LOCKBIT, and be like, hey, companies, if you're a victim, really assess whether you want to pay, because you could roll the dice, and you've got a good shot that they're not going to post it. Now, I get that doesn't mean that they may not try to post it to one of these file sharing services, but again, you can work with law enforcement and things to take it down. Still a risk, I understand, but it's not the same level
It
of
definitely
risk
helps
that
defenders.
it was.
It definitely helps those on the right side
It
of
gives us time.
cybercrime,
But
right?
that's gotta damage their brand, right? Like, because there's certain, I guess, street respect that they
It
get, but
does.
now you're repackaging and relabeling Conti's ransomware.
Well, yeah. Here's the best part, and this really shocked me. Yeah, yesterday or the day before on the forums, LockBIT posted, and it's
I
funny
know.
because they call me Johnny, and they're like, "Yep, Johnny was right. he got us on this, but you know what? Now that he's pointed it all out, we're going to fix it." Fortunately, it's not that
Right.
easy to just fix. Who's going to kind of play it that way? I think LockBIT will go away completely because I mean, look at all the new ransomware gangs that stand up. It's not like it takes a lot to get it going, but to become the top dog and running the whole thing and making hundreds of $1 millions a year, that is potentially what could be swayed. And my real hope is that shining this light not just tells the public, but it lets criminals know, hey, if you're going to
Yeah,
invest,
yeah,
think
make wise
wisely who you
investments.
join. If you go to these, yeah, you could be wasting your time. And I have such a weird relationship with LockBIT now, and the people who
Compared to
work for
other
them.
people that have
I mean, there's
relationships
a
with
Like I have a real
cybercrime
good
gangs.
relationship with the
right.
drive-through guy at Arby's.
Yes.
That's about as deep as I can go.
Well, it was like yesterday, a friend of mine who's working an IR investigation for a small company. They haven't been able to their ID that you use to
Isn't
start
working.
negotiation on the chat log. He couldn't get it to work, so he was like, "Hey, I've never used the Tox to talk to them directly. We always use the proper channels. Can you get me their Tox ID?" And I was like, "Sure." So I went to log in, and sure as I'm doing it, I couldn't believe it because I honestly have been feared for that there was going to be retaliation, and LockBIT pops up and he's
Oh my,
like,
Whoa.
"Hey
my
Johnny,
gosh.
I'm back." Type.
So let me ask you about that.
And
So LockBIT, the name of the code, the name of the gang, right? There's the core group.
Yeah.
And you said that core group has about 100 regular employees that is part of the core group.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
okay.
core gang.
But then there's
That means
also all
everything
of the
that to make
affiliates. So this is a large organization. This is a
correct.
large
Yes.
criminal organization. This is huge.
Huge. It's huge. Yes. And that's why
Yeah.
This
I
is
call it
organized crime.
Yeah.
Literally,
Especially the way that it's especially the
organized.
way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but especially the way that it's organized in the sense that some people do this task, some people do that task, and they don't know each other. Like
Yeah.
that's the definition of organized
Correct.
crime.
That's
And
Right?
exactly what they
yeah, well, ironically, criminals got upset that I called it that and called me naive and said, "How dare I make those accusations?" And I'm like, maybe you watch too many movies on
Yeah,
what
this
you
isn't the
might think organized
Sopranos.
crime
This
is.
is
This
like
is
actual
40s,
organized crime.
the mafia or something. Yeah, exactly. This is what it's become, though, and that's this is like exactly what it is, and it's one of the top, if not the top, organization in Russia that's doing these type of operations. So it definitely is an organized criminal
And when
crime syndicate for sure.
Mr. Lockbit, the sup, kind of when he shows
Yeah.
up and says, "Hey Johnny, I'm back," things pop in my
Mhm.
mind. One, run as fast as I can down the street and call my parents. Like I don't know what to do. Two, but honestly, what is there one head? Because in your last research, you said the
Yeah.
one managing the administrator of all this is basically who we're calling Lockbit, but there was really another one you felt was also like a
right.
president
Yeah,
and like a
there's
vice president kind of.
yeah, there's one core guy who is behind it all, and then he has just like any
A
type of crime
consigliere,
family, he has people
whatever,
who
You've got
right?
your
work directly.
captains, you've got your street soldiers, you've got your affiliates.
Yes, and they all have different roles. Yeah, and now the operation is so big with Tox. It used to be, if you tried to talk, you would talk to him or one other person, and now, they're 24/7 now. So over a week for them to get back sometimes. So yeah, they've got multiple people that are working channel. But I've talked to them enough that it's obvious when which role
You can tell the
player I'm
persona from
speaking with.
the type of language or the way they're speaking and what they're speaking to.
And I
Yeah,
talk to him enough that it's just, and it's usually now it's usually the one the leader that I usually talk to, but sometimes there's a guy who's younger there that's way more friendly. He's professional with me. They're
Really?
never shitty with me, and it shocks me because they do. I see them get shitty with people, and I'm maybe it's because I'm professional with them. I don't know, but that way. But it's weird for me because it's at a point now like and I can tell you guys a story if you want, but there was a moment where somebody that would be in the know was concerned that the leader of LockBit might have been killed, and he was not. But literally, like, these people are gonna not like me for saying this, but I don't want to see physical violence or
Right.
harm happen to this person. They should be in jail, but I don't want to see something horrific happen to them. So I was honestly relieved when I found out that they weren't dead. And I know that sounds crazy because people are like, oh yeah, you know, they're do these horrible things, but I don't want to see
No.
the person
If you
die.
talk
Like,
to
that's
people in
not
federal law
what
enforcement,
I
they
mean.
feel somewhat similar when they go after organized crime, right? They've kind of developed professional relationships with them in the sense that, look, there's a
Right.
foul on the play. You got to go into the penalty box, right? You got to do that, but I don't want to like hurt the person necessarily, right? Like, I'm not trying
Correct.
to like physically harm the person. I don't wish that on them. You just want
But it's
them to
weird
play
to
by the
care.
rules.
It's weird to care.
Like, come work for
Yeah.
come like take a huge pay cut, but come work for the right side, you know?
Right. Yeah, I think the leader of
Yeah,
LockBit, it's past that, but I want to see him in a cell,
absolutely. Right,
not in a
exactly.
grave. You
So
know.
how we've talked about this in the past, some of the reasons these guys don't come to justice. And I'm only asking that. I think I know the answer, but I want to ask based on your experience. Um,
So honestly, is different than what it would have been a month ago. So a month ago, I would have told you, you know, this is still part of it. You know, I would say it's the money, it's the street cred, it's the, you know, being infamous and known throughout the world, and the allure to it. But honestly, what I've really been trying to understand more, and I've got a long way to go, but sort of the culture there. And I was talking to somebody who is in the legal system and represents people involved in ransomware. And one of the things he pointed out to me was a lot of the people, if you look, are really young. And the reason they get into this is because they come from parts of the world where they don't have any opportunity. Their families and themselves are even threatened at times. And this is a no-brainer for them. And I really hadn't looked at it that way. So to answer your question, some of them, it's the path that makes the
Very
most
similar to your
sense for
research
them
on
and their
Bastard Lord,
situation.
the last Ransomware
Correct.
Diaries Volume 2, where you heard his story and the reason why
Correct.
he got into it, because when his mom was in the hospital and things like that, there was no other way to pay for the medical care, right? Because of the part of the world that they're living in.
Right. Correct. Yes, that is correct. And you know, like this kid that got arrested, I think Arizona, who was working for Lockbit, and you know, he came from Eastern Europe. That's where he's from, but he just got arrested here. But the point being, he was
Mhm.
17 when he started working for him. And I was pretty hard on him in the report, but in reality, like, I hope that person learns, like,
Right.
he's gonna get
Mhm.
another chance. He's young enough. He's gonna have a second chance, and I really hope that things change for him and he takes a different path. But again, I didn't quite look at the reason why. I'm like, why would they do this? This is
Right.
so stupid. But you know, I have a whole different life than we have a whole different life. It doesn't make it okay. I'm just saying I'm less judgmental about it now. It's absolutely wrong, but it can be wrong, and I can come after you and want to get you arrested and chase you without
Absolutely,
judging you, I
absolutely.
Yeah.
guess is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
and I mean, what's really wrong about it is when they do leak the data, if they can get their infrastructure fixed, if they actually do leak the data, the harm that comes when it's medical records and it's private things that are,
Yes.
sacred to people, and they get released, and
Right.
that stuff can be used to, harass and torment people for years to come. The financial records, right? It can be used for identity theft, and
Yep.
identity theft and things like that have been shown to lead to suicidal ideation, depression, it's causing a lot of harm. It's not just data, right? It's not just a bunch of Excel spreadsheets with data. Like, it's not just that. It actually is really harming a lot of people. So let's not ever lose track of that. But some of the people and the reasons clearly justifiable if you think about it, right? Let me ask
Yeah.
you, was they breached, do you think? Was Lockbit breached, or were
Was there
they
a
taken
defining
down?
factor, something that
Like, what do you think happened?
So, can I just tell you that part of the story because that's super
Yeah.
oh,
interesting and it
wow.
just happened. Yeah, so it was I was at CAT
Just a
and
couple
DEF
weeks ago.
CON
Yeah.
yeah, a couple weeks ago. And while I was there, before I left, I had made a social media post, which in hindsight might not have been the smartest thing I've done. It was a joke. LockBit's data site took a screenshot of it. I made a counter to match when my would come out, and I basically and I made LockBit a victim.
Oh.
I changed it from LockBit 3.0 to LockBit 3.0, and I put my face on it as the bad guy, and I made them the victim entry. And I said, "Give me $10 million, or I'm unleashing all of your secrets on whatever it was, August 15th or whatever."
Right.
And it was, I mean, it was a joke. I thought it was very obvious. Unfortunately, at the same time that I did that, someone actually hacked or tried to hack LockBit. So at the same time I did that, LockBit actually disappeared
Whoa.
on Tox. They went offline and they were gone. Yeah, they were gone for, it was like 10, 12 days, something like that. They were just gone. And that has
No.
not ever happened since
Wow.
they've been in existence. Like I said, 1 or 2 days was the longest we'd seen before. So this was huge. And these affiliates who I have relationships with started reaching out to me, and they're like, did you really hack our infrastructure? Are you de-anonymizing us? And are you going to release our identities? And first off, even if I could do that, I
Oh,
would never
dox
publicly
them?
release
Right.
those
Yeah.
identities.
Yeah,
No,
that's
It's
not
I
your
don't
not.
play
MO
that
at
game.
all. No.
I mean, like, look, law enforcement
Right.
knows who these players are to
I
the
don't think
extent
I
that they
don't think
do. There's not. It's not like that's that could lead to physical harm.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah,
Right.
and I
No,
just
it's
not
not
who
your
I am. Like,
personality.
I'm not out this publicly and embarrass people. Like that's not what I'm about. Whether you're a criminal or
Right.
whoever, it's just not how I handle things. But anyway, I'm not a hacker either.
Yeah,
So I'm like,
exactly.
no, I'm like, I appreciate that you think I could do that, but haven't hacked in probably 15 years legally for a job when I used to do that. But anyway, I don't have the kind of skill set. I couldn't do it. But the problem though is multiple people were
Wow.
coming to me, senior level people, and I realized it's not just me. I thought LockBit just blocked me. I didn't realize no one could talk to him, and that's when I realized, oh my goodness, like this is a lot bigger than I thought. So it looked like I was extorting them, and their infrastructure went down. And then,
Was this your post?
yes, that's it. That is the
I just
post.
wanted to
That is
share
the
that with
post.
everybody. So this is John's
Yeah,
post. Check that out.
yeah,
Let me zoom in for everybody
yes.
and kind of see what all did you say? You said LockBit. You have until the 15th of August to pay
Yeah,
$10 million.
yeah,
And then right after that
yes.
was when
Right after that is when they disappeared. I started getting people asking
gosh.
me had actually hacked them, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is bad.
Wow.
Like this is like I said, it was
Yeah.
supposed to be a joke.
Wow.
Maybe like the smartest move.
Yeah.
It was funny,
Do we have
but
any information
but
about what
yeah, not
happened? Like, was it a DDoS attack? Was it just infrastructure, the hosting side?
so the next day I got a message from somebody that I don't know, a screenshot from a private report from a cybersecurity company
Right.
who I'm not going to name just because it's not my business to name them. In that report, there was a picture of the admin panel. The admin panel is not something that very only like affiliates, people close in really know about it. I mean, I'm sure there are some other researchers that have figured it out like me, but what I'm saying is 95% of the ransomware population doesn't know it unless you're working for LockBit. So I knew that this legitimized the report, the fact that they had the right Tor
Right.
link, the URL, the onion link. And they had a screenshot of the panel, and then where you log in, it said, "But do we really have to?" Indicating that
Oh.
they'd found a way to bypass it. And there was other information that then was given to me that that LockBit had, the leaders or the crew, the main crew of LockBit had found some code on their infrastructure that shouldn't be there. And so I can't reach out and tell them it's not me because everything
Oh,
the
man.
comms are down. So yeah, I was I was sweating it. I was already having other security related concerns at the conference, And yeah, it was. I mean, this is the
Right.
life that I live. I'm not complaining, but I'm just trying to explain so you can like life, day in my life. Like yeah, it was definitely stressful. But that's why I've always tried to be professional and establish a relationship even with bad guys, because I think that's probably what saved my ass, that people believed me, was that the bad guys believed me, is that I did have that relationship, and I guess they came to realize that it was not actually me. And I'm not gonna lie, I told them. I mean, I knew the report was coming out in a couple of days, so I told them, I'm like, look,
You're right.
somebody hacked you, but it wasn't me. And before I did anything with communicating that to them, the first thing I did before I said anything about that was reached out to law enforcement to make sure I wasn't going to be intercepting some
Absolutely.
operation or something. And
Yeah,
if they had
that's a
said
good
yes,
Oh,
point,
I just
wow.
right?
That's
I
a
didn't
wouldn't.
even
great
think
point.
about that. That could have been
Yeah.
a takedown
Yeah,
through law enforcement through an
right. And
offensive
I did.
means, right?
I learned the hard way many years ago to make sure I do deconfliction before I put
Absolutely.
stuff out publicly. So it's not fun when they show
Yeah,
up
you don't want them
angry
mad at you
at
too.
your
Now
employer.
we're on the same side,
Right.
right? Like we're not trying to just don't let us muck it up. That's what we're trying to do. So let me ask you: have you
So yeah,
heard from Lord, or did you get any sense from him? I thought there was some mention in your recent report, because that he was the subject of like the human side of ransomware.
Yep.
He was an affiliate. You understood the human reasons why he was drawn to this life of crime, and there was at the end of that, we kind of left it with, it looked like he was thinking of getting out of it or not, but some, like, who knows.
right.
But now that LOCKBIT was having these struggles, did he have you communicate with him? Well, what's his feedback?
I So I communicate with him fairly regularly, like maybe once a week, once every other week. We'll have a chat here and there. When if I need information about non-lockbit stuff, sometimes I'll ask him, because he's connected with the National Hazard Agency, which
Mhm.
works for a bunch of different ransomware crews. So yeah, I'll talk to him and ask him about things. And when this stuff was going on, I definitely reached out and asked him. And he just like many of the other ones thought that I was behind it. And of course I assured him that I wasn't. But yeah, he definitely thought that I had done it also, which again just shocked me that people. I
Mhm.
couldn't believe that people believed it. It makes sense. I put the post
I
out, and then they
appreciate you thinking so highly of
I
my
get it.
skill set, but this was probably beyond what I could do.
Meanwhile, my email crashes, and I definitely need the hard drives.
So you have a picture in your Ransomware Diaries Volume 3 of this tattooed young lad who's got like snakeskin pants on and stuff, and that's the
Worse.
FBI's Newark, New Jersey field office saying that they've been very busy. Was that the gentleman that got indicted, that was the former LOCKBIT affiliate?
He is indicted, and he is a former affiliate, but that's
Mm.
not the one I was referring to earlier. Boris is a lot smarter than the other gentleman I was talking about. Boris, his real name's not Boris. His actual
Right.
last name
And
is
he
Matt
hasn't been
Weave.
caught, correct? Right.
He has not been caught. No. There's a $10 million
Wow.
$10
reward
million
for him.
Wow.
on your head. Well, that's why he's got the snakeskin
It's funny.
pants and the
Yeah.
full arm tattoo.
Right. I talked to him. I've talked to him not as frequently as Bastard Lord, but still once every couple of
Does
weeks.
he work for other
Um,
organizations too, like
Oh,
LOCKBIT
yeah.
and Conti or Clop or whatever?
He did. He doesn't now. So that's what
Mhm.
I wanted to know what he was doing. So he was behind a lot of the big groups. He had worked with. He was one of the guys behind the Washington D.C. ransom
Yeah.
that took place a couple years back, and some other big ones. But he's connected to a bunch of gangs. But LOCKBIT was one of the core ones that he worked for. And so that was one of the things I wanted to know, since I talked to him fairly regularly. I asked him, I'm like, hey man, are you like still
Mhm.
working ransoms now that you've got so much attention? Are you still doing that? And they said no, he's taking a break, and his version of a break is he's now looking at developing 0-day exploits. And he didn't say this part. I'm saying this. I'm sure he's going to sell those to ransomware.
Of course.
But yeah, he was working, when I talked to him, he was working on a new vulnerability for Microsoft SharePoint that he was trying to polish off. But he also, and this didn't put this in my report, I wouldn't share this except he put it out there, publicly. So yeah, he's doing well. He's getting married, things like that. So he's not feeling the heat. This indictment, if anything,
his street credibility,
is
right?
where he is. That doesn't mean he shouldn't be indicted.
Right.
The FBI's got to do what they got to do. But the fact nobody can get him in Russia
keeps him out of
is smart
traveling
enough
to
to
the
know
West, I guess. Right?
It does. It does. He's not coming to DEF CON anytime.
Share his new exploits of SharePoint. Yeah. So wow, lots of things to discuss. So can I ask you on separate from your ransomware diaries, the Move It exploit has been all over, right? And with the Clop ransomware gang, which is traditionally operates kind of like LOCKBIT, right? But now they haven't really been launching ransomware. They took advantage of that 0-day exploit for this file transfer program that it seemed like everybody in the world was using at the time. And they're just going to pure extortion. They're just like going in, stealing data, and then leaking it. And apparently their infrastructure works because it's constantly being leaked. What's your take on that? I mean, it seems to be growing every week. It's something we've been following from the beginning, because my fear right off the bat was this is going to be like another SolarWinds. And it seems like it's growing and growing and growing.
More and more of it.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. They get the 0 day is the most effective when people don't know about it or there's not a patch. What I was talking with some other analysts, and we kind of had this common, idea, theory. What really happened here is they used that and they got into all these companies. But as soon as they got in, they created additional backdoors. So by the time all these companies are hearing about it and they're patching it, they think they're clean and they're not. And that's why we keep seeing new victims rolling in.
It doesn't matter if you patch it, right? They still have the backdoors.
Right. And that also allows them to control the amount of data they have to host at one time, the negotiations they have to do at one time. It's a controlled release, as opposed to how LOCKBIT, went last year when they ramped up their program and had this huge boom that's causing them all these problems. So I think there was a lesson learned there, and other ransomware groups, not a lot of them, but a couple of them are doing it a little bit differently.
Interesting.
And that's our
so what's next for LOCKBIT in your opinion? I was almost sensing when I first read this, it reminded me of REvil and REvil, and how they kind of got too big. They might have done something wrong with the Russian government, the FSB or something, and then they got taken down, this big visual display. Or did they? Right? What happens next now for LOCKBIT?
Here's the thing. LOCKBIT's going to do everything humanly possible to fix their program. I don't know why they just don't go away. They've made so much money. I honestly, it's gotta be ego. I can't figure it out, but they're not going to go away. They've made that very clear to me. They're not going to go away.
They're addicted to the process.
So they're going to try.
Wow.
They enjoy the day in and day out part of it.
Right. What I think will happen, I think that they'll continue to have problems. I think that over the next year, we're going to see, it start to really, we've already seen some of the impacts. They're booming again right now, but we've already seen some of the impacts. And I think that business will slow down. And as it slows down, their problems will also start to get better, because there'll be less data. And there's, new kids on the block that are coming up. Eventually somebody's going to become more popular, and LOCKBIT will go down in the numbers, but they'll still make lots of money and it still be a pain. But I hope that they completely fold and that happens. The only reason that I'm saying that I can't go on a limb and say that that's going to happen is because these guys are they're so dedicated. They're as dedicated to running their program as I am to chasing them. I mean, they love what they do. It's strange, but they do. And so I don't see them just folding. But all these things, all these problems they have, all these issues, one of the things somebody said to me was like, hey, whether I agree with it or not, they said, hey, you were part of making them go offline for like 9 days, and while the lights were on, nobody was home. So while their websites and everything was up and the automation was still working, there was nobody home. And they're like, yeah, nobody, right? That doesn't happen often. So, if you could do it, like others can do it, law enforcement can do it, governments can do it. So I do think eventually the more of these type of things happen, the more opportunity there is for mistakes and for interception and to get in, and the more paranoid these groups are going to get. So I do think that there's going to be windows for law enforcement to do things, and I do think that there's a possibility that LOCKBIT will go down over the next year, which is why I made the cover that I did. We're definitely seeing cracks. It's whether or not they can fix them before things fall apart. And I'm not a fortune teller, so I can't say that. But what I do know is they've known about these problems for a while, and they haven't been able to fix them. That's good for us.
Well, yeah, I just can't help but think that it's, it sounds like grasping for straws with the repackaging of Conti's code. Like, that sounds like a desperate move, right? Like, I don't know.
Well, that's the other thing I forgot to mention, though. That's the other thing is, at least as of January, February, they were trying to steal payloads from their competition.
Yeah, you're right about that.
And they wanted to put it in one channel. Yeah. And they want their affiliate hackers to use multiple ransomware variants to encrypt victim data. So that way, if the FBI gets one key, they're still stuck and have to pay a ransom. So that would be bad for us. Fortunately, it's bad for other ransomware gangs too, who are not just gonna lay down and let that happen. But he's trying, and LOCKBIT is very capable. We should never underestimate that organization. So he's trying. Hopefully, it doesn't happen. But yeah, he doesn't have a developer. He doesn't have new ransomware that I'm aware of. Eventually, I gotta imagine that's going to change. But think about it: how many experienced ransomware developers are out there that are out there? There just isn't a ton
I don't think
them,
MIT or Stanford has a program for that.
Right.
But so during the, I think your point, you're it's almost one of those things, the closer you get to the target, the more blurry it is, right? Like as you're talking about them getting panicky, and Mark pointed out them, repackaging a competitor's code and all that. It's almost like during those moments of panic, they could burn the wrong bridge and cross the line like Revel did, right? Potentially.
Yeah. It's definitely a possibility, and the reason that there's even a higher probability of that is because also something I realized during this round of research is LOCKBIT made a statement. He's like, I watch my affiliates by watching the news. He's like, why do I have to follow them when the media does? So what that tells me is, there's not, even though he says in the rules on their page, they recently updated to be really specific, but not to attack, X, Y, and Z type of industry or critical infrastructure. The point is that there's not a means to prevent it. He has to see it after the fact. So all it takes is one of these guys being dumb enough to go and attack critical infrastructure that makes that sort of an impact, like we saw with Revel, and
critical infrastructure. And I know that the LOCKBIT platform will check languages and things, right? But they don't know everywhere that Russia has interests, right? Yeah. And so they could go after and hit something that could be damaging to the motherland and then get themselves in trouble.
Yep.
Interesting.
Correct.
Interesting. Wow. So you first came about a huge splash years ago with the REvil. With your investigation there. And people have asked me, like, whatever happened to those gentlemen?
Well, that's actually what one of the top contenders, what my next research might be, because I have a lot of inside information on that as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
share a little bit of it, but
what's next?
You got to share something.
I'll share the end result, because the interesting part of that research is going to be showing the inside information that proves it. But the Revel that exists today is not the Revel that we saw in their heyday. The core leaders of Revel that made all those things happen are gone. They're not arrested. They're just gone. and they've gone off into the sunset. There are people that are part of the gang that were arrested, but they were not the core players. And so they actually sold
Wow.
the REvil ransomware to an affiliate crew who tried to repackage it for a while as though they were REvil, but they didn't do a good job of it, and they didn't have the same tactics, the same
Right.
TTPs, the same human behaviors, anything. And they just went about doing things differently. And again, I'm minimizing it because I've got some good stuff on that to blow that open. But the end result is that's actually a different group. Those are affiliates. And now the guys that were arrested, those are the people that you see now it's been in the news, that are working and supporting Russia in the war against Ukraine. And that's why you see REvil ransomware being used.
That's what I was asking.
I knew that
because they were brought to, we saw
The
those
guns-
images of them in court, in the Russian court. And I'm like, okay, well, their court system isn't what our court system is.
Now you work for Russia.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, they do. Those guys were a part of that crew. It's just
They weren't the
were
leadership
not
core.
Right.
I imagine the pay is a little different too.
Probably a lot less. The pay is you get to live.
I bet so.
Right.
I would take that over being
absolutely
in a prison
any day.
So, yeah.
Any day. So, Jon, as always, thank you so much.
Yeah,
man.
this was so good.
You are welcome here anytime, and I vote for the follow up on REvil for your next one. Unless
I wasn't sure about the intro.
Unless
that's good
of
to know
course there's LOCKBIT 4.0 that comes out.
Right. I feel like I gotta take a
LOCKBIT
break.
You're flying a little too close to the sun at this point, I think.
Yeah, maybe LOCKBIT, Klopp and
Right.
Conti join form like a. That's amazing.
This was good stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We'll have links to the Ransomware Diaries Volume 3 in the show notes. And if you haven't got it, and you can't, I just realized my background's blurred. But if you don't have Jon's book, it's The Art of Cyber Warfare.
Yep.
It was one of the best. Like, it's so good, Jon. Like, it's part of it is technical, and then part of it is like if anybody's ever studied political science or international relations or anything like that, like you lay it all out, all the players, you'll understand it. It's a great framework. When you hear the news, you're like, oh, I know what role these guys are playing in all of this, because so many of these things, there's a story behind the story. It's not just about the data that gets stolen, right? There's espionage or something else that is tied to this. There's a longer play. So
yes, in most of my career, I actually did espionage, not ransomware. And so when I wrote that book, there's lots of things I was part of that I just can't talk about, but the knowledge and information that I was able to share, I could. And so I just wanted to tell good stories and sort of teach, cool spy stories and get people wanting to get into the industry.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate the plug.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have links to the book as always in our show notes, and we will talk to you soon. We promise you we will be talking to you soon.
I've been on your show more than any show I've done, and I do.
At this point, you're ready for your own co-host position.
Well, that's great.
On the crawler below.
Right. If somebody's sick,
if Mosher doesn't step up his game and some questions for my guests, like it's going to be the Jon David show. I'm just kidding. You're always welcome. But no, that absolutely, Jon. Thank you so much. We're very humbled and grateful for you to be here. So,
my friend, it was good to see you again.
Thanks, everybody. Reach out to Jon on LinkedIn and through Analyst One as well. So, no, I read all your stuff on Twitter. It's always good stuff. That's usually where you go head to head and you make some of these bold claims, and then the Twitter feed becomes some content for later. So, it's a great point. Yeah.
Right.
So, all right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jon.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that wraps this up. Thanks for joining, everybody. Hope you got value out of digging deeper behind the scenes of security and cybercrime today. Please don't forget to help keep this going by subscribing free to our YouTube channel at Cybercrime Junkies Podcast, and download and enjoy all of our past episodes on Apple and Spotify podcasts so we can continue to bring you more of what matters. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for joining us.